So we're going to pick it up from where we left off in the Holy Quran, divinely prepared by Noble Drew Ali. And this is chapter 43, dealing with the insufficiency of knowledge. Holy instructions from the Prophet dealing with insufficiency of knowledge. If there is anything lovely, if there is anything desirable, if there is anything within the reach of man that is worthy of praise, is it not knowledge? And yet, who is it that attaineth? The statesman, whoever doesn't know what statesman is, a government official of some sort, the statesman proclaimeth that he has it. The statesman proclaimeth, Islam Zariah, let's hit mute real quick. So the statesman, who was a government official, proclaimeth that he hath it. Proclaimeth that he had what? Knowledge. The statesman proclaimeth that he hath it. The ruler of the people claimeth the praise of it, but findeth the subject that he possesseth. Find the subject that has it. The knowledge. Topic at hand, insufficiency of knowledge. Evil is not requisite to man. Requisite is like necessary. Evil is not requisite to man, neither can vice. We already covered vice, right? Things that lower self, destructive things, slowly over time, vices, bad habits that one may have. Neither can vice be necessary to be tolerated. Intolerable. Yet how many evils are permitted by the connivance, root word being conniving, permitted by the connivance of the laws? How many crimes committed by the decree of the council? Right? Decree of the council. Now we're back to body. Because remember, we just used the word statesman up here. So we're talking about people in positions of power elected by the people and the mentality, right? But be wise, O ruler, and learn. O thou that art to command the nations, one crime authorized by thee is worse than escaped of 10 from punishment. So somebody in the seat of authority, a statesman, somebody part of a council or a body, does something unnoble or anything in that type of vein, that's worse than the escape of 10 from punishment. Or somebody that's in jail, 10 people get released from jail. When the people are numerous, when thy sons increase about thy table, sendest thou them not out to slay the innocent? Don't send your offspring out to slay the innocent. Give them principles so they know how to discern. Send them out not to slay the innocent and to fall before the sword of him who they have not offended. Don't teach your offspring to brandish a sword and he's not been offended. Don't be the bully. If the objects of thy desire, demanding the lives of 1,000, saith thou not, I will have it. Surely thou forgettest that he who created thee created also these, and that their blood is as rich as thine. Sayest thou that justice cannot be executed without wrong? Surely thine own words condemneth thee. Thou who flatter the false hopes of the criminal, that he may confess his guilt. Art not thou unto him a criminal? Or art thou guiltless because he cannot be punished? So somebody part of the council, the statesman, can't be punished. He's part of the government that is arresting the quote unquote wrongdoer. So don't flatter because you interrogating the criminal. Don't flatter the criminal with false hopes. Like, man, just give me what I want to hear, man. You're gonna be up out of here. That's called a ruse. Don't take your position and abuse it. We're talking principles here. Because they can do that and not be punished, right? When thou commandest to the torture him, whom is but suspected of ill, dareth thou to remember that thou mayest rack the innocent. In this context, what does rack mean? An instrument of torture on which the body is stretched. For example, that's just off the definition I read. So in this context, racked, that thou mayest, right, rack the innocent, torture the innocent. When thou commandest the torture, so right, it's actually a reinforcement because they said torture up here. And if you look at rack, it's going to say torture. That's fly right there. Okay. So now that we know that, when thou commandest the torture him, to torture of him, whom is but suspected of ill, dareth thou to remember that thou mayest rack the innocent. So he may be innocent. You may be torturing the innocent. So just having suspicion without any merit, insufficient of wisdom. That's unwise. When thou commandest, I'm sorry, number 10, is thy purpose answered by the event? Is thy soul satisfied with his confession? Right. So if you torture somebody and you get what is said that you wanted to hear the person say, even if it's right or wrong, you wanted him to just say he did it or whatever, even if he didn't. Are you satisfied now that you got that after you tortured them? Is thy purpose answered by the event of the torture in this case? Is thy soul satisfied with his confession? Pain will enforce him to say what is not, right? Back to, like I say, he really didn't do it, but you putting the pain on him. He's like, if that's what you want to hear to stop the pain, yeah, I did it, right? Pain will enforce him to say what is not, as easy as what is, and anguish have caused innocence to accuse herself. Causing the innocent to accuse thyself because of the pain. That thou mayest not kill him without cause. Thou dost worse than kill him. That thou mayest prove, if he be guilty, thou destroyeth him innocent. Don't destroy innocent people for insufficiency of wisdom. That's unwise to do that. Don't be impulsive. Jump into conclusions. Always be sound in every decision you're making. O blindness to all truth. O insufficiency of the wisdom of the wise. Know when thy judge shall bid thee account for this. Thou shalt wish 10,000 guilty to have gone free rather than one innocent to stand forth against thee. The instrument as thou art to the maintenance of justice. How shalt thou arrive at the knowledge of truth? How shalt thou ascend to the footstep of her throne? So every time you hear throne from this point on, you know that's knowledge of truth, metaphysical, which we also know throne is, the pioneer. How shalt thou ascend to the footstep of her throne? As the eye was blinded by the radiance of the sun, so shall the brightness of her countenance. What is countenance? A person's face or facial expression. Right? So as the eye was blinded by the radiance of the sun, so shall the brightness of her facial expression. So that's an analogy for the sun's brightness and expression of dazzle thee in thy approaches. If thou wouldst mount unto her throne, her first bow thyself at her footstool. If thou wouldst arrive at the knowledge of her, first inform thyself of thine ignorance. So once you acknowledge your ignorance, it's going to be easier to sit on the throne. You at the footstool. That's the first step. Acknowledge your ignorance. Now you at the footstool of the throne. That's the first step. But you want to get to the throne. The phoenix hopping out the ashes. The depths of ignorance or lower self in pursuit. More worth is she than pearls. So we saying she, but we still talking about truth, knowledge, symbolized from this point as called the throne. That's who she is. More worth is she than pearls. Therefore, seek her carefully. The emerald and the sapphire and the ruby are as dirt beneath her feet. Therefore, pursue her manfully or aggressively. Pursue the truth and knowledge aggressively, manfully. The way to her is labor. The way to her is work. Attention is the pilot that must conduct thee into her port. But weary not on the way, for when art arrived at her, the toil or work shall be to thee for pleasure. You're not even looking at it as work. Seeking truth and knowledge, that's not even work. That brings pleasure when you're in your higher self. Say not unto thyself, behold, truth breedeth hatred, and I will avoid it. Dissimulation. Dissimulation is the concealment of thoughts, feelings, or character. Right? So disguising. Avoid it not. Dissimulation. Dissimulation raiseth friends, and I will follow it. Are not the enemies made by truth better than the friends obtained by flattery? Are not the enemies made by truth better than the friends obtained by flattery? Naturally doth man desire the truth, yet when it is before him, he will not apprehend it. He will not catch it. He will not capture it. These are synonyms for apprehend. In this context, truth right in front of him, won't catch it. And if it force itself upon him, he is not offended at it. The fault is not in truth, for that is amiable, delightful, engaging, amiable, engaging, delightful. The fault is not in truth, for that is delightful. But the weakness of man beareth not its splendor. What if thou see thine insufficient more plainly? View at thy devotions. So if you want to see your insufficiencies of wisdom more plainly, analyze what your devotions are at present, right now. What am I devoted to? Write it down on a piece of paper. What am I devoted to? That's a direct correlation to the insufficiency of wisdom. Wouldst thou see thy insufficient more plainly? View at thy devotions. To what end was religion instituted, but to teach thee thy infirmities? Like we learned from the previous chapter, or 2 chapters ago, what infirmities are: mental weakness. So is it the point of religion to teach thee thy mental weaknesses? To remind thee of thy weakness? Look, it followed up with the word weakness. Reinforcement. To show thee that from heaven alone art thou to hope for good? Doth it remind thee that thou art dust? Doth it tell thee that thou art ashes? And behold, repentance is not for frailty? So doesn't religion identify your weaknesses so you can work on busting out the ashes like the Sphinx on the way to the higher self, the Phoenix on the way to the higher self? Isn't that what religion is based on? Mastery so you can ascend. Doesn't it also tell you that repentance is not frailty? So repentance is asking for forgiveness, right? That's not weak. You can forgive yourself and bounce back. Forgive yourself and bounce back. Doth it not remind thee that, I just read that, 23, when thou giveth an oath, when thou sweareth thou wilt not deceive, behold it spreadeth shame upon thy face, and upon the face of him that received it. Learn to be just, and repentance or forgiveness may be forgotten. Learn to be honest, and the oaths are unnecessary. And no need for no oaths if the whole community is honorable. You just doing your thing, like, oh yeah, let's make it happen. Make it happen. And no, what's the need for an oath for? Community honorable people, right? Learn to be honest, and oaths are unnecessary. The shorter follies, and once again from the last chapter, lack of this sense, foolishness, the word folly. We learned that from the last chapter. The shorter or smaller follies are the better. Say not, therefore, to thyself, I will not play the fool by the halves. He that heareth his own faults with patience shall reprove another with boldness. He that giveth a denial with reason shall suffer a repulse with moderation. You give a sound reason, you're not just combative with people. You're not just, somebody say something, it may be wrong. You're not just, that's wrong because you're not coming hostile. You just putting the measuring stick out there, and that's it. That's a reason. And when you do that, repulse just means opposition. You know, it'll be a moderate opposition. It'd be like, okay, I might disagree, but it won't get hostile. If thou art suspected, answer with freedom. Whom should suspicion affright except the guilty? The tender of heart is turned from his purpose by supplications. The proud is rendered more obstinate by entreaty. The sense of thy insufficient commanded thee to hear. Your insufficiencies, make sure they stand out. Make sure you can detect them. Your shortcomings, things that are stopping you from having peace at every day, whatever that balance, that equilibrium that only you can only know how to make that happen. Make sure that's highlighted so it can happen, so you can chip away at your insufficiencies. Commandeth thee to hear the insufficiencies, but to be just thou must hear without thy passions. So in order to hear something 100%, if you want to hear something or hear somebody when they speak or receive information, you can't be in your own mind having your own thoughts. You got to be undivided attention if you're truly trying to receive the information. Right? Be just. Right? Thou must hear without thy passions. So I want to open the floor for analysis before we transition to astral diagnosis. Thoughts on the chapter?
One of the main points that stood out to me, it was, are not thy enemies made by truth better than the prayers obtained by flattery? That just like hit home for like what's going on right now. And it just made me really think like I would rather be friends with my enemies if they go be honest and keep it real, as opposed to trying to be friends with somebody that's being two-faced and fake. Like,
Right. Exactly. Oh, and Islam to Zaza, Soraya Bay. Hope we're having a good day today. Who else tapped in while I was reading? That was about it.
Peace.
Peace and
Peace. Good
love.
to see you all. Peace and love.
Did anything else stand out for anybody or some more things stood out for you, Phoenix?
oh, I got like a whole list of bullet points right here. You want me to go ahead and read them off, or is it to pick out some?
Let's get like at least 2 or 3.
All right, so another one, pain will enforce him to say what is not as easy as what is. And anguish hath caused innocent to accuse herself. People don't really realize how much pain affects their experiences around them. And once you release that, you start to see perspectives different. But yeah, it really affects your actions and how you move in life if you don't transmute that energy.
Wow.
And let's see what else. Be wise, O ruler, and learn. Oh, thou art the commander of nations. Like that's what was for me. Like you have to lead by example, practice what you preach. And once you do that, like you moving in alignment, so you're automatically gonna be put in alignment with people who move like you.
Wow.
Islam.
Islam, Ravion.
Islam. I'm not sure what number it was when I came in, but it was one you were speaking on, or maybe multiple, that was talking about basically, do you want somebody to lie to you? If you got to torture the truth out of them just to hear what you want to hear, is that what you want? That's a big deal with a lot of people, because it's like, even in this Hollywood, you want to call it, that's like the whole that crowd that's around them, when it's just a yes men type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, they're just around to give you what you want to hear, not the truth. So you're never gonna grow for real in that type of scenario.
Yeah, I was feeling that one too. Like the celebrities, they have a lot of yes men around them.
Mm-hmm.
I never really tell them the truth about them because
They want to keep them there to drain them.
Yeah, keep them in their circle. Like you're always going to be cool. Like that was a good one.
Yeah.
There was one more around that one, but I can't remember right.
That's cool. Let's get like one more. Then we transition to astro diagnosis.
Islam. I really was attracted to ayat too. Just that first part. Well, really the whole thing where it says the statesman proclaimeth that he hath it. You know, he doesn't have a want for anything. There is no lacking, you know what I'm saying? Because the more we want or proclaim that we lack things, it's more harder to attain, if never. Versus rather than bringing and magnating things towards you and saying, I have it, I have it, I have it, I know I have it, and then, letting it fly. Islam.
Islam. Islam.
I just had one comment though. The learn to be honest and oaths are unnecessary. And they got Article 6, they all gotta take oath.
Right. They must have been some crooks, huh?
I don't know. That's like, oh my God, that's so scary. That was crazy.
Yeah, that's the me too. And if everybody honorable, ain't no need for no oath.
Obviously they weren't, so Article 6 it is.
Yeah.
Hey,
That was-
exactly. And they escaping from the punishment. That's what I see in line 4. And then, with some of us, not knowing who we are and our nationality, that is like, that's the first part of that. That's the one crime.
Mhm.
Yeah. Islam. That's fire. That's fire. All right. So we're gonna pick up where we left off on Astro Diagnosis by Max Wendell. We're now dealing with the ears. And I don't know if y'all been looking, but y'all can check y'all emails for the last 4 to 6 weeks, the minutes, and it'll give you a sense of for one bullet point, it's bullet pointed out. The minutes is bullet pointed out, really could be a study guide, and it'll catch you up to speed as well. So Islam. So once again, just take thorough notes, mental and physical, and let's have a discussion on the back end on what stood out to everybody individually. All right. So we're dealing with the ears and abscesses in the frontal bone. Anybody doesn't know what abscesses, we're dealing with a swollen area that has pus, generation of pus in it. Don't believe me? Look it up. Female born December 30th, 1864 at 9:30 p.m. This is what we're dealing with. This is the subject at hand. A female, December 30th, 1864, 9:30 p.m. Born under these star alignments, constellations, etc. In this horoscope, we will continue with afflictions found in the cardinal signs. While they may be in different signs of the cardinal group, yet the effect is similar in all. In this lesson, we have the horoscope of a woman with Virgo on the ascendant and common signs on the angles. 2 prominent planets, Uranus and Mars, are in or near the 10th house. While they are in retrograde and are not in conjunction, they still are parallel to each other and parallel to the sun. Mars being in conjunction with the midheaven sextile to Neptune and trine to the moon gives great enthusiasm. Whatever this woman attempts to do is done under impulse and with great force. With Mars and Uranus so prominent and the sun in Capricorn, she feels that she must rule at any cost. Should she be denied this privilege, she will become very resentful and revengeful. With Saturn in its sign exaltation, Libra, square to Mercury in the Saturnian sign of Capricorn, we meet the vicious cycle or a vicious circle of the cardinal signs. The sun in Capricorn afflicted by a square of Neptune, both in cardinal signs together with the parallel of the nervous and excitable Uranus to the hot and inflammable Mars, has caused a succession of abscesses. What are abscesses? swollen areas of the body that has pus generation in the frontal bone, resulting in partial deafness in both ears. Here we find the previous mentioned circle culminating in the ears. The writer has found numerous cases of partial deafness resulting from an afflicted Mercury in Capricorn, conjunction, square, or opposition Saturn, especially when Saturn was in a cardinal sign. So before I keep reading, let's get a visual of the patient that we're looking at, her chart. And you remember the last patient, it was a cluster in the 10th house of heavy Taurus, remember? And that gave the tendencies to be overindulgent. You know, remember she heavy sweet tooth and all that. So that's an example. So now we're going to evaluate what her chart means, her tendencies, her willingness to accept cure, etc. It is not necessary, however, that these afflicted planets should cause deafness. The planets impel, they excite, but wisdom is ever a friend which saves. Man has but to learn to know himself. Man has but to learn to know himself. So that's Max Wendell, Noble Drew Ali principles, Hermetic principles. Man, know thyself in another way. Max Wendell is telling you, if he would be as zealous in understanding the functions of his own physical body as he is those of his ratio or automobile, then when planetary afflictions became known to him and the symptoms appeared in the physical body, he would at once set to work to conquer them, just as he would go about repairing the mechanism of his machine, oiling it and cleaning it. For instance, if congestion were felt in the neck or ears, there would most likely be some discomfort experienced before any damage was done. Then a slight manipulation would be made about the ears and the frontal bone, up and down the jugular vein, the back of the neck, and wherever the fingers can find sore spots on and about the cranium. Frequently, a towel wrung out of hot water will relax the restricted nerve centers in the head and neck and regulate the blood flow to and from the brain. A hot towel working magic. A wrung out hot towel of water is regulating blood flow.
That's fire.
This will keep congestion down. Fire. And all serious trouble may be avoided. All right, so remember we was wrapping up the last chapter because it was long. So really we just look at it like we going over chapter 13, I'm sorry. So so we're dealing with the eyes. And once again, we're dissecting. And this time we're dissecting somebody under March 21st, 1847, conceived between 1 and 2 a.m. So that's the patient that we're dissecting now. The overall is dealing with eye trouble. We usually judge the appearance of the native by the ruler of the ascendant and the planets on or near the ascendant. Also by positions of the sun and moon and their aspects. In this case, we find there are 2 rulers, Capricorn being intercepted in the first house. One of the rulers, the planet Jupiter, is in the detriment in the sign of Gemini, making a square aspect to the co-ruler Saturn, showing that these 2 planets are very active in affecting the personal appearance and also the personality. Saturn has a tendency to darken the eyes and hair and to make the body and the features small. That's what Saturn do. The tendencies of Saturn, darken the eyes and the hair. make the body and the features of the body small. This man has the physical appearance of a Capricornian, is thin-featured and small of body, and very nervous and restless. It is always necessary to study the temperament of the patient in order to know how to deal with him, as it often gives a clue to the cause of disease and also helps to guide us in giving advice. We find that the sun, Uranus, Mercury, and Venus are all in the martial or Mars and energetic signs of Aries, with the sun making a sextile to Jupiter and Mars. The last named planet is intercepted in the first house of the Saturn sign of Capricorn and is making a square to Venus and a trine to the moon. So let's look at what we've been reading so far, a visual. And once again, the fundamental concepts of trine and sextile and all that, you know, everybody should have got touched up on that. It was like 4 weeks ago, we was talking about that. Why that's important to just know. We're dealing with degrees of separation. And are those degrees of separation harmonious or inharmonious? And they're going to call, in this book, they're going to call them afflictions as well. So just a reminder, when you hear that, those words, afflictions, know you're dealing with unfavorable degrees of separation or inharmonious degrees of separation. Okay. Mars, thus, in the first house, gives a very materialistic state of mind. This man would sacrifice his health in the pursuance of success in worldly matters. He craves riches and worries and becomes very restless when matters do not prosper. This would, in time, if continued, undermine his health and cause him to suffer from nervous disease. Neptune, in the sign of Aquarius, in square aspect to the moon, in the worrisome and pessimistic sign of Taurus in the fifth house, the house of investment, indicates that he expends much energy in speculation. It is plainly indicated that he has a tendency to become entangled with large corporations. He wrote to headquarters several times, endeavoring or attempting to get us to advise him regarding his speculations, but was told repeatedly that this was against our teachings. During the war, he invested his all in a large corporation, which was building a submarine boat in which he hoped to interest the government, but the corporation did not exceed in this, and in consequence, he lost heavily. We find that Saturn in the second house, in the watery sign of Pisces, square to Jupiter in Gemini, also the watery planet Neptune, is in the last degree of Aquarius in the second house, square to the watery moon in the fifth house, in the second sign Taurus, all indicating speculation and loss. Worry over financial loss aggravated the eye trouble from which he has suffered for a number of years. He has been an incessant reader and has put a heavy strain on his eyes. The mental disturbance over his financial loss weakened the nervous system, causing him to lose the sight of one eye. We find the moon in 29 degrees of Taurus conjunction the Pleiades and square to moon, Jupiter, square to Neptune. Jupiter is in 10 degrees of Gemini in the sixth house. That is of sickness, in opposition to the fixed star Antares, which is situated in 8 degrees of Sagittarius. Also, Jupiter is making a square to the obstructing Saturn, all indicating eye trouble. We find Mars square to Venus and trine to the moon in Taurus. This man has in the past been fond of the flesh pots of Egypt and has gone to excess in drink and good things to eat. The result is constipation and internal hemorrhoids. We note that with Jupiter square to Saturn, he has also suffered from obstructed arterial circulation. Due to the amount of food consumed in the past, the poor body has been unable to bear the strain. At present, he is fearing the loss of the second eye, which, if he is not more careful in his diet and mode of living, may be the cause. The man would be a very hard patient to deal with, as Mars and Capricorn near the ascendant is his most stubborn influence. He will not take advice from anyone. It would take great persuasion and diplomacy to get him to follow the advice of the healer. So section B, we're still dealing with the eyes. The Rosicrucian method of healing is not only of faith, but it is faith joined with common sense. So once again, the author of this book is in the Rosicrucian order. So he's giving his perspective. We recognize disease. We acknowledge that it is caused by breaking the laws of nature. So disease is caused when you break the laws of nature, you get disease. Max Wendell, Modern European, is telling you this. You break the laws of nature, you get disease. Sometimes there is lack of will. The horoscopes that we will herewith diagnose will show how one can overcome, where another will succumb to almost the same astrological conditions. So subject dealing with a female born December 1st, 1864. The application for healing was made by this woman during the winter of 1918 to assist her doing an operation for the removal of cataracts on both eyes. She had been under the care of the doctor for a number of months. He concluded that the cataracts had reached a stage where they could be removed with safely, but the woman felt that she desired the assistance of our invisible helpers during the trying period. She had previously heard of the wonderful success of our healers from friends who had been benefited. There were a number of good aspects in the horoscope which always make for safety, especially Mars trining the sun, which gives great recuperative power. In looking for the afflictions, we find Mercury, opposition to Pleiades and Taurus, and the Sun and Venus conjoined to Antares. The Pleiades and Antares are fixed stars, which have direct influence over the eyesight. So Pleiades and Antares are fixed stars, which have direct influence over eyesight. Especially is this true when they are afflicting the Sun and Mercury. Let's have a look at the chart we've been discussing. Let that sink in. Much of this woman's trouble is due to the afflictions which we find in the cardinal signs, Aries and Libra, the latter of which has rule over the kidneys. Jupiter is in Libra along with the restricting Saturn, which is strong in his exaltation. Saturn is in the opposition to Neptune in Aries, while Mars is also strong in Aries, being conjoined the moon. These are danger signals showing that through wrong living, moon conjoined Mars stimulates the appetite. She has undermined her health by wrong choice of foods and by eating to excess. So the reason she has an appetite is because her moon is conjoined with Mars, stimulating the appetite. Based on that, now that's the natural tendency. Now the person to choose what to eat, that's individualistic. You can have an appetite and eat healthy, but this particular person chose not to eat healthy. She has undermined her health by wrong choice of foods and by eating to excess, because her tendencies, why? Because her moon conjoined Mars and stimulates appetite. These practices have filled the kidneys with poison. And when the kidneys suffer, the eyes go wrong, for the eyesight is frequently impaired through the kidneys. However, cardiac are usually due to an excess of sweets, creams, and very rich foods. And the afflictions in Libra are prone to send these impurities to the eyes. But since Mars is in good aspect to the sun and Venus, and the sun and Venus are in conjunction, this woman has overcome the obstacles and been cured. So she overcame the obstacles because her Mars is in good aspect to the sun and Venus, and the sun and Venus are in conjunction. That's why she overcame the obstacles. Passing successfully through the operation for removal of cataracts. So I think I'll stop it. We'll pick it back up on number 2BX, page 94, bottom of page 94. So I want to open the floor up for analysis, notes that I took, mental, physically, and let's just, have a conversation.
Islam. My birthday is December 30th, so that one was ringing true for me. I have a lot of hearing issues on my left side and that kind of issue. Not major, but I could tell if I let it go, it could become major. So I have to stay on top of it all the time.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, man.
Peace and healing. Islam. I just have to say, this book and learning your natal and your medical astrology is necessary on so many levels, not just for individual, but even your even for your tribe, your spouse, your children, your elders, because you can basically read everybody with ease. And I use this with my practice all the time for my clients when I'm doing the holistic assessments and everything. And it even tells me, if they're going to follow through with it or not. And like you said, their afflictions, their north nodes and south nodes. And then what was the other one that you were saying?
6 down the trines.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right on. Every astrological sign has individual issues, and depending on if a person is dwelling in their lower selves or higher selves, will contribute to their addictions and their food coping mechanisms. So even now, I could look at people's plates and be like, oh, I can see that they're, what sign are you? Okay, I can see that you have mother, father issues. And it's showing in this, and it's showing in your back, or it's showing in your ears. It's going to manifest in this section, or it's right on point every single time. So people, you learn this and get this down. People literally think that I don't know. They think I'm psychic, but I'm it's not even have having to do with being psychic is knowing how to read, the signs, basically. And signs are literally everywhere. So reading your body, that's one thing, being able to go back to read your body, and even the signs show on our faces. It shows on our foreheads, our under eyes, our tongues, our hands, our teeth. Like the signs are everywhere on every inch of our body. And our body literally tells us when it is in distress, whether it's acute, mild, chronic, and learning how to reverse it, basically. So I thought this was, when you told me this earlier today, I was like, let me jump on, because man, oh man, just analyzing this and what you were reading according to what I'm already going through, like with my clients and everything, this is like right on point. Islam.
Yeah, Islam. And this is chapter 13. So the previous chapters, like you're gonna love them. You're gonna love, how thorough and specific the diagnosis, Anybody else?
Yeah, it's interesting with what, like even on our birth certificates, how they ask for, your birth date and the birth time. It's like, why were they recording that? Because they were analyzing us, basically, and they already knew what could happen or could not happen just looking at your birth time, your and your birth date, basically.
Yeah. That,
They can diagnose us.
Yeah, they diagnose you at birth. They already know.
Right. Exactly. We don't know what you're gonna turn out to be.
Yeah.
That's how they know when the prophets come back and all that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yep.
I'm sure they got a close eye on all that.
Yeah. And this is how you can forecast. Like she says, they thinking she a psychic, but it's just what it is, it is what it is. You can't shake it. And you're gonna have certain tendencies based on certain things. You're gonna have certain urges based on, like we just read, certain sextile or trine or conjunction. And it is what it is. And also I was thinking like how they used to call us witches and all this type of stuff, like magicians, and it's all based on, the noble knowing the scientific approach about something while the masses have no clue or they care not to. So when we exercise certain things in this world, the wards or the minorities looking at us like, oh shit, that's magic. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, how you know that? Oh my, saving people from years and years and years of therapy,
Right.
paying these fake therapists that
Yep.
keep you on pharmaceutical drugs, just like in the newest Matrix, Neo. If you watch the newest one, I think it's the Matrix 3 or 4, whatever number they're at. They're trying to trap y'all. So once you know all these things and you've studied yourself, you know how it reflects in other people, and you know how to combat. You crack the code in your own matrix, basically.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't be fooled no more.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anybody else had any thoughts?
Yeah, that's what the word diagnose means. It's pretty much just telling what the disease is based on, visuals or symptoms or something like that, So that's the thing. Like if you have symptoms and all right, who are we diagnosing? You know what I'm saying? We diagnosing someone who has symptoms, right? We can see them. But at the same time, it's people out here where if they're living a natural life, which means a healthy life, then they might not go through any of those things, even though they are warning signs to tell you like, yo, this to watch out for. This is like your weakest area or more acceptable area to be sick in and shit like that. But if you live in like an unhealthy life now, most likely you are going to have these problems. You know what I mean?
Right. That's why I like a couple paragraphs up, we talked about why the person had the urges to eat excessively, but the choice of what to eat is still individualistic. So that goes back with what you were saying. It's like, it could have been detrimental.
Yeah. I don't know if this book goes into the chakras at all either, but when you overlay that into the chakra layout, which is our solar, our energy cycles, our energy systems, like from the root to the crown, and depending on like where the issue is, that's like the chakra that's blocked, and then it has the symptoms of overactive versus underactive chakras, and where that energy comes from. Like when people are, when they have stomach issues, men or women, prostate issues, fertility issues, POCS issues, or impotence issues, or overweightness, or any of those issues, and they're either, they like creamy foods, bready foods, chips, and all that other stuff, you can diagnose them or analyze them, assess them, like, oh, okay, I can tell that creamy and chewy and saucy, those are all comfort nurturing things. So you miss out on comfort from like the feminine side of whatever. Or if you like salty, crunchy, that represents the emotion of anger, unsettled anger, and that resonates in the solar plexus area or the root chakra. If you're eating, like, you can diagnose their diet and tell them to a T, like what they're struggling with, whether it's feminine or masculine issue, the time frame of when it happened to them, most likely as well. So, when they're in their when they're going to meditation, they can heal those inner child wounds, because that's mostly where it comes from. Those traumatic issues come from, and we just hold on to them for years and years and years. And then, you have an adult that has, drug problems or overeating or obesity or whatever it is, because the energy has to go somewhere. So does this book talk about chakras as well in here?
Not
Or
yet. I think it
not
did.
yet? Okay.
You know what? I think it did lay a light foundation on chapter 2 and 3. And also, like I said, I recommend go back to the emails, because each chapter we bullet point on the highlights, and that'll kind of help you navigate too.
Yeah, it was saying stuff like, you can also heal yourself in those areas by eating the food of the color of the chakra. And you know what I mean? So if you,
Right. Every day of the week. Every day of the week has a chakra. Every hour is a different solar hour as well. So if you want to lay out your day, you can do it accordingly. So you can work with the energy, or the energy is not working against you. Basically, you work with it.
Oh,
yeah,
that's dope. Islam.
Through the chakras, that's the first way. Like, I basically learned how to analyze myself, because like I said a while back, I got diagnosed with like depression and anxiety, and they were trying to give me pills, but I knew there was a better way to go about it. So the way you broke down the chakras, that's one of the first ways that I was able to teach myself and break it down. So now, then I got my birth chart, but I need a little better understanding. So going over this stuff is helping me to better understand the visual snapshot of my birth chart, and then like all of the stuff overlaps, so you can add the chakra information with the birth chart information, and like everything always seems to coincide and add up, like overlap.
Yep.
Wow.
And it's not so much that like the addictions, like some people, you like crunchy food, or Leos, they like meat, they like to eat meat, they're lions. Or Pisces,
that's
like
what I am, a Leo.
You have to understand that we're being constantly poisoned. So if you are still eating meat, or if you are eating fish as a Pisces, I have a lot of clients that were Pisces. I'm like, oh, Pisces, your water is being poisoned. Like, you can't drink just bottled water. You're very sensitive to chemicals and toxins. And you might like fish, but wherever you're getting it from, the mercury and everything is terrible. It's terrible for you. So you have to implement these habits and this type of food. And if you do eat meat or fish or whatever, make sure it's the primus of the prime cut. Like you have to know the butcher. You have to know, how they're organically raising their animals, and make it's like the purest, cleanest cut piece of meat. You just can't go to freaking, Ralph's and buy a steak, or, the grocery, you can't shop at grocery stores. First of all, everything in the grocery store is toxic and designer
Right.
food. But yeah, if you are, every sign has something. So even helping my clients steer around what they should be eating according to their sign, because you're going to like what you like. I'm not saying everybody needs to be vegan or anything like that, because, according to your sign, and it's always been true about 99%. But if we're here in the States, since we are, heavily poisoned on a daily, these are the things that you should be doing to combat the toxins that they're throwing at you and your sign, basically, or your astrological body, to protect yourself.
Yeah,
That goes back to what we were talking about with moderation and temperance and not overindulging in stuff that's not good for you.
Right.
right. And you see, it's in 2 books. We took the Quran. The Quran is saying the same thing this book is saying, astral diagnosis, because it's saying, having temperance and moderation. That's talking about the pendulum not swinging, you know what I mean, things like that. So the books go hand in hand to me, you know what I mean? And back to the famous quote, know thyself, get your house in order. We're talking about the zodiac, the 12 houses, your chart, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Knowledge of that. But yeah, Pisces, just make sure y'all stop eating fish.
Yeah. So let me get around to your sign. I'll tell you what you can't eat.
That's crazy, because they gotta shake it. You right on
They
point.
gotta shake it. They do. I mean, I'm not gonna say you can't eat fish ever, but if you do, you gotta either, know your fishermen. Like I wouldn't eat fish in the States. No, I would be, if I would, if I did, I might be in the Caribbean, where, their waters are cleaner and they have a natural way of fishing, and they're not, eating the mass made fish, or what are they making?
GMO.
The GMO fish, are raising them in the fish tank, and they're all sick, and they're all on these hormones, and they're eating like pellets and stuff. Like my last client, she eats salmon all the time. She's Pisces. I'm like, first of all, salmon is riddled with parasites, especially in the States. They've already shown all the salmon farms and everything like that. Stop eating this shit. So I'm like, and she's from Jamaica, so she's used to, eat. I'm like, you can't eat like that over here. A lot of foreigners that come over here thinking our food is the same over there. It's not. So I'm like, you were able to eat certain things over there that weren't killing you, because they add all kinds of stuff in our food over here. And she's like, yeah. So
Yeah.
and knowing your sign does help. Knowing your sun, your ascendant, and your moon sign, especially for health.
And 2, remember the mental, because that's the most important thing. Because remember the classic placebo pill. If I tell you something gonna work and your mind, you believe it, you can cure yourself.
Yep.
So not only is this, scientifically right, but also it'll put when you're doing these things, it puts your mind state in a curing state. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm doing all this stuff and I'm mentally at peace. Everything, I'm just calm. Everything is beautiful. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be a domino effect. Just because you put your mind in that gear,
Yeah.
Anybody
For
else?
sure, got to give yourself some good input, man. Like I say that a lot, but like that shit is true though. Dr. Layla African. I was watching some of his shit, and what he say? No, he said your thoughts are chemicals, so the brain can create any chemical in the world just by a thought. And I see it all the time. You know what I mean? I see the reaction of my body just being in personal experiences. Like, something that makes you fear, something that makes you get a rush, roller coaster. Like your eyes see it, you know what I mean? And boom, 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 we just start, So that's all true, man. It's important what we think and what we know, and that stuff is all important.
Yeah. Yeah, and self-esteem, because like, knowledge, even back to the fundamentals of just knowing the nationality and knowing the historical, who we are historically, this knowledge of that brings self-esteem. And that's a thought. Like, you start walking upright, you know what I mean? Not all
That's
slow.
all facts.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah. That's why they teach you at, hey man, so what grade? What grade is it now? When they teach you, you was took it from Africa, and that's all mental shit. You believe that does something to you.
You feel inferior.
Especially believing a lie. Believing a lie too, though, that's even worse.
And then the metaphysical thoughts of you feeling inferior translate to your physical body, right? It's
Right.
connected.
Yeah.
Ailments, you know what I'm saying? Depression, so all this type of stuff. So
Facts.
it's all connected,
Yeah. Islam.
So,
One more thing to the Pisces about the salmon and the farm raised fish, especially the salmon. When they raise them in there, they don't even come out pink. They're really brown. They feed them something to turn them pink. So that's another additive chemical to fool you.
that's crazy. Ali Khan Bey, Islam. You been
Islam.
Islam. Yeah, man. I don't know how much you caught, but I don't know. What you hear? You just heard astral diagnosis?
Yeah, that's all I heard. Was talking about the astral diagnosis. That was it. I figure I'm gonna rewatch the episode when you put it up on YouTube, or when you go live. Actually.
Yeah. It's gonna be on YouTube, but they've been hating, man.
On Instagram.
Yeah, I'm about to switch up the whole. When I go live, I'm about to switch up the format. Like, it looks like they
Okay.
let me read the Quran, but as soon as I get to the astral diagnosis, they start.
They start. Okay.
Chopping it up. So I might just actually go live when I'm doing that part. Just have some stuff queued up.
Okay.
And have a couple people on there, just But yeah, yeah, that's for sure, man.
Right.
You trying them sweats? You try the sweats?
Yeah, I tried them on. Good looking. They fit too. Perfect.
For sure. Yeah, man.
The consoler returns tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yay.
What? Happy solar return, big bro.
Islam, Noble.
Islam.
That's right.
Happy birthday, Noble. Happy solar return, Ali Khan.
Islam.
Yeah, man. What you got? You got me what? 34, 33?
So I'm gonna be like 21. No, I'm playing. Turn 30.
You're like, we
I'm
immortal
gonna
over
be 3-0.
here. I don't put a number to it anymore.
3-0. That big 3-0 now.
Are you in the 30 club? Oh, yeah, you finally made it. You done made it.
Young buck. Welcome to the 30 club.
Yeah. Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, man.
Man, I remember them days. Look.
Yeah.
I remember those days.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
What I finna say?
Hey, that's what I liked the most, though. When I met him, I was like, hold up, you Mo. He was like, whoop, whoop. I'm like, yeah. I loved it, The younger, the better, man. Yeah.
Man.
Got a solid start.